Each week at this time we do something called a community moment. It's where we invite someone from our Oasis community to come up. Think of it as our amateur hour, but I don't know, that's a bit. But it's a fun, informal time to share a life experience, a thought you've had. Sometimes it's a story of your journey to free thought. Community moments can be on about almost anything from Esperanto to origami and everything in between. So if you would like to do a community moment, please get with me. I would love to get you on the schedule. Today we have a veteran, not only presenter of community moments, but main talks, and he always does an amazing job. And are you ready to go, or do I have to kill time?
No, keep
okay.
I'm ready.
I know Luke can always tell a joke if we need to. Okay. Good. All right. So let's welcome our friend, Dr. Richard Andrews.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. Hang on to your hats. This is going to be relatively quick. I traveled to Kazakhstan and Central Asia this summer at the invitation of Eric and his lovely wife, Nurgul. Where are they? Oh, there you are. Nurgul is a Kazakh physician, and she has a nonprofit, trying to raise money to help, with various Kazakh health issues. So that was part of the purpose of the trip, plus also just to have a good time. So, and this is a traditional Kazakh uniform outfit that I was given, and Eric suggested the magic wand. So Kazakhstan, just to give you an idea where it's located, so this is Kazakhstan in the middle of Central Asia, Russia up on the north, a 7,000 kilometer border, so it's been heavily dominated by Russia in its history, starting in the 18th century when the Russian czars came down into the Kazakhstan area. And then later, of course, it was absorbed into the Soviet Union and was a Soviet republic for quite a while. Over to the east, you have China, another major influence, and then you have several other stands underneath it: Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, and then many of you may have heard historically about the famous Silk Road, which was a lane of commerce for hundreds of years. With a lot of Kazakhstan's history is based on events that happened along the Silk Road and travelers going back and forth and merchandise of one kind or another. And some of the cities we visited in the south, including the one that Nurgul is from, called Shymkent, which is the third largest city, is along the Silk Road, in fact. This gives you an idea of the size of Kazakhstan. It's the 9th biggest country in the world, the largest landlocked country in the world. I'm sorry for those of you that I'm in the way of. You can see that it's nearly 4 times as big as Texas, so it's a big place. Basically, when we flew over there, Eric and I flew over there because Nurgul was already over there, and we flew from Houston to the largest city, which is Almaty. That used to be the capital until about 15 years ago, and then the president, who's been in there for decades, moved the capital up to the northern part of the country, which is, again, more Russian influenced even than the southern part, and so you have a brand new capital, and we'll see pictures of that capital as we go along in the slideshow. So basically, 13th century Mongol nomads came in along what would later become the Silk Road. And then there were Turkic influences and Islamic influences coming in from the south after that. So the ethnic Kazakhs are a mix of Turkic and Mongol nomadic peoples. And this is, Eric and Nurgul got married. Was it earlier this year, I think, or February? But they hadn't had the real wedding party until, because that had to be in Kazakhstan, of course. So that's one of the things I was invited over for, was the real wedding. So this is the park in Shymkent. Shymkent, again, is Nurgul's home city. I'm happy to say that this was my dance partner at the wedding party. One of the things that the Russians, I think, brought in, they brought in a lot of great things. They brought in also kind of a drinking culture, which kind of contrasts with the more abstaining Muslim culture, of course, from the South. And one of the things I was worried about in going to this wedding party was, because I had read about this kind of stuff, is that I would be forced to drink large quantities, and I'm not a big drinker. So, so I, sure enough, at the party, I got roped into drinking a little more than I normally do, and actually had to escape at one point. I literally went into the bathroom and locked myself in for a little while, so they could, because they have this tradition where one of these Russian bear types, Kazakh bear types, will lock arms with you, and you have to toss shots of cognac or vodka down. I had already been sipping, very, very delicately sipping a cognac up until then, and then he came along, this guy Anlas, which we'll see a picture of him later, and it was like, down the hatch, down the hatch, down the hatch. And I was starting to stagger at that point, and then somebody came along and hauled me off. I think they recognized that I was in danger, so they hauled me off to the dance floor. And then I escaped into the bathroom for a while, and then I came back out. The picture you just saw was kind of interesting to me because I speak about this much Russian and about that much Kazakh. There are real Russian speakers here, including Gosha, of course, and Nurgul. But the burger joint you just saw had an interesting use of one of the Cyrillic letters to turn it into like a McDonald's logo, and it's a burger place, and so they used it to form the first part of the name of the city, and so it was called Schimburger, and so it was kind of like stealing a logo, but I thought it was kind of creative anyway. This is Eric, and Anlas is the guy that nearly killed me over here with vodka and cognac. And then after I was on the dance floor for a while, then another guy grabbed me, and that was several guys, and I was locked into a corner tossing down more shots of vodka and cognac. And then I had to escape after that. This lovely young lady wearing my hat was one of Nurgul's relatives, I think, right? Nurgul, yeah. And she was about to step on something, I think, and so I said, "Oh, no, no, no." I was trying to stop her from doing that. She didn't know any English, but she knew that word, and so then for the next few days, we were kind of trading that back and forth since we couldn't communicate too much otherwise. And oh, no, no, no. So, she really loved saying that phrase. And this odd picture, which is out of focus, was we were driving along back from a hiking trip, and there were some horses in the road, and we couldn't get past them. And of course, the darn horses didn't seem to obey the rules of the road, but it turns out they were obeying the rules of the road. We just didn't understand the rules of the road, because when we finally talked to the shepherd, I guess you'd call him, he said, well, the horses run on the more or less the right side of the road, and they're anticipating that you're going to drive on the left side of them. And so we were trying to go around the right side, and the horses didn't go for that. So that was kind of interesting, I thought. And this is the home of Nurgul's relative that we stayed at. And they built this. It's common in many parts of the world where it may be difficult to get a mortgage or something, to just buy construction materials over many years, often decades, and then gradually build your dream home. So this is the dream home over here on this side, and then a separate building over here and a garden on the right. So that's where we stayed when we first went there. And there was a lovely spread every day. And there's the garden in the background. And I'm sorry I'm getting in the way of the garden there. I had to show the picture of the garden for my brother. He's a big gardener. And this is one of the many mosques in the country. Kazakhstan is roughly 70% Muslim, at least nominally, although there's a lot of secular influence from the north, from Russia. And Saudi Arabia, after Kazakhstan gained its independence a couple decades ago, Saudi Arabia started pumping in a lot of money to build very fancy mosques like this one. The traffic in Shymkent is kind of crazy, and the drivers are kind of crazy too, and so I felt like we were taking our lives into our hands every time we got in the car. So, this is a garden spot that Eric and I were supposed to hang out in, but there were no lovely ladies handing us grapes. This is another one of the houses that one of the people built, by saving up materials and money over time. A little picnic. This was before the hike into the mountains. There's the mountain hike. This is Anlas again. Hard to get away from him, but he's a lovely guy, as with the other Kazakh people. There's a long chain of high mountains leading over toward China. This was on a ski resort in the town of Almaty, where the weather turned cool quickly. This is a facial surgeon over here on the left. This is at a Georgian restaurant in Almaty. This is a plastic surgery clinic where they do a lot of reconstructive plastic surgery for uninsured people in their largest city. It's one of the things that the non-profit group is trying to raise money for. This is a mode of transportation where you just stick out your finger and somebody stops and then you haggle out a price. It's one of the major modes of transportation. This is one of the mountain-fed streams in Almaty, because again, it's right next to the mountains. This is a Soviet bloc. I thought it was interesting, a Soviet bloc era apartment complex, which actually here's the Che nightclub that I went to. It just says we're open, and here's an extra large ashtray for you in case you have a Cuban cigar. And there's me dancing in the nightclub somewhere in there. Star Trek in Russian or in Cyrillic. And I thought these candles were interesting, and of course this is another one of the surgeons that does facial surgery for low-income people in the clinic over there. These are the mountains near Almaty. Again, on the other side of that somewhere is China. When we came up to this area, it looked to me a little bit like Switzerland in some ways, especially the next picture. And here's another one of the facial surgeons. There were pictures of her with Eric, but I didn't like those pictures as much. Nurgul didn't either. So, and then this is a nurse. I thought her hat was interesting. And here's a Russian Orthodox church. Roughly a quarter or less of the Russians there are, of the Kazakhs are ethnically Russian, and many of them are Russian Orthodox, although a lot of them are secular also. We almost missed our flight here because they had what they call a silent airport where they're not going to make announcements. You just have to pay attention. This is the president of the country down there. This was sort of a family photo. I thought it was interesting. You can see this guy that looked very much like Genghis Khan over in the corner. There's a lot of meat over in Kazakhstan. That's one of their principal dishes, because they have a long history of, being nomads with horses, horse meat included. Another lovely spread, highway up to Russia. Literally going, the northern part of Kazakhstan is quite literally on the edge of Siberia. It gets down to -40 in the winter there, but it was warm in the summer. Here's Eric creeping up on the elusive mushrooms out in the field. He says, "Trust me, I'm an expert." Turns out they were hallucinogenic. So here he is about an hour after eating the mushrooms. And here he is about 2 hours after. So he can tell you more about that. I think I'm starting to run out of time, so how am I doing, Mike, on time?
Keep going, keep going.
I'm done, okay. So I'll go ahead and stop here, guys. If you get an opportunity and you want to help out some low-income Kazakh people and help Kazakhstan with some of their health issues, including multiple drug-resistant tuberculosis, talk to us about the nonprofit group that we have working in Kazakhstan. And if you know anything about crowdfunding, let us know about that. Thanks.
Right.